Welcome to a Monday night episode here at Southern Sports Gumbo. We're diving into SEC baseball from this past weekend. We had three teams get swept in conference, and that was the LSU Tigers, the Missouri Tigers, and the South Carolina Gamecocks. Two teams swept at home, one on the road. 14, 15, 16 swept this week. Playing three of the better teams in the league as well. So let's dive in with our winners and our losers of the week. Kevin, you want to start with your loser of the week?
Yeah, so I'm gonna go with a team that played at home and really needed to get 2 out of 3, in my opinion, this weekend, since they were playing at home, and that would be the Tennessee Volunteers. Lost a tough game Friday night, a well-competed game, and then they lost this is the one that, to me, should be a big disappointment for them. Sunday, through 7 innings, the game was tied 0-0, and then they gave up 7 late. Tegan Coons had a good start. But they gave up 7 runs over the last couple innings and lost to Ole Miss, and then they did salvage the Sunday game, winning 13-5, but they were 7-8 going into this weekend. Losing 2 out of 3 puts them at 8-10, and that to me, they're right there on the bubble. If they go 13-17, I don't think they make the tournament, and I think there's absolutely the potential to do that. These teams that are on the bubble, you gotta win your home games. You gotta win your home series, and Ole Miss was a series that they could have won. Now, we'll talk about more Ole Miss later, and they're playing really well, but I just think that was a series that Tennessee needed to win. Mac gave up 5 runs on Friday night. Winnable game in that ballpark, but again, Saturday when you have your pitching shuts the other team out for 7 innings and you don't score to give yourself some momentum. That's a big loss to me and a big loss of a series. Sweets, what about your loser for the week?
My loser of the week is the Arkansas Razorbacks, dropping 2 of 3 at home against Georgia. They came into the series 1 game above, or 2 games above 500. They came in at 8-7. They're now 9-9. Just a rough weekend for them. They won Friday night 6-3, led by Damian Cruz and Carter Rubenbar, both hitting a couple bombs there. Georgia came back Saturday, got him 5-3. Aoki threw 5 strong innings of relief, was fantastic for them. And then on Sunday it was 9-9, and then all hell broke loose, and Georgia scored 2 touchdowns and a field goal and ended up winning 26-14. 9 home runs, which is a school record for Georgia. The one kid on the team, Daniel Jackson, hit a home run. I want to say it was 478 feet. They said it was the longest home run in Georgia history, and they just smacked the Hogs around. It was ugly. Georgia solidified themselves at the top of the SEC, and if they continue to handle their business, they're going to be a tough outcome come June. D-Mac?
Yeah, my biggest loser this week is going to be the Kentucky Wildcats. Friday night they win at home against a struggling Vanderbilt team that going into the weekend had an RPI and 100. So take care of business Friday, only to lose Saturday and Sunday, 21-13 between those two games. Vandy hit quite a few home runs Sunday. You talked about football scores. I know I combined 2 games, but 21-13's another football score. This is a Kentucky team that started the SEC with sweeping Alabama at home, and ever since that series, they lost the following weekend to Ole Miss 2 out of 3, lost 2 out of 3 to LSU, lost 2 out of 3 to the Missouri Tigers. Who is they're in last place. Lost 2 out of 3 to Auburn and lost 2 out of 3 to Vandy this past weekend. They can just not get things going. Whether it's players being ejected, coaches, everybody's got ejected this week for Kentucky. They're at some point they've got to right the ship and they at least they get South Carolina this week. It is on the road. It would not surprise me for Carolina to take 2 out of 3. against a kind of lost for focus Kentucky team right now. So over to the winners, Kevin. Who do you have as your winner this week?
So I'm gonna go opposite, the loser that I chose, and I'm gonna go Ole Miss as my winner of the week. If you go back 3 series, Ole Miss was swept at home against Mississippi State. Everybody was upset because they lost that same week, a midweek game to Memphis. So they had lost 4 or 5 games in a row. People were upset coming out against them. Their athletic director actually came out and publicly stood behind Bianco and said some things that some people in their fan base was not happy that he said, just with the way that he framed it kind of at the fans. Now, that being said, since that game or since that statement and that sweep to your rival at home, Mississippi State, they went on the road, won 2 out of 3 against Florida with a tough Sunday win, came back home, won 3 against LSU. Then they go back on the road this week and to Tennessee and win 2 out of 3. So 4 out of 6 in tough places with Florida and Tennessee, and then a sweep of LSU, which normally would look good at home. So you're looking at a 7-2 record since Mississippi State swept them. They're playing well. Basetta, Udermark. One guy that's really came on for them that's helped them in this stretch is Hayden Federico, hitting a little over 300 during this stretch on base percentage, around 350. So he's been a big asset to them. And then also their pitching has been really good. We know what Elliott brings to the table on Friday night. Cade Townsend's been outstanding the last 2 or 3 weeks. And then Tyler Reid has also had some good games for him on Sundays. The Florida game and the LSU game got knocked around a little bit against Tennessee. But and then also too, Walter Hooks out of the bullpen has been big, pitching multiple games on the weekends. Um, you know, getting key outs and in leverage moments for Ole Miss. So I'm going to go Ole Miss. They are, after that sweep against Mississippi State, and everybody thought it was the end for them. They're 10-8 now in the SEC. I reference that because there are 5 teams at 10-8. You have 3 teams with 5 losses. Well, 2 teams with 5, Texas with 6, and then you have 5 teams at 10-8. And I think all 5 of those teams are in a good spot. Somebody in that group's going to finish 4th, but they're all in a good spot to make the tournament and probably host. Sweet, your thoughts on your winner of the week?
Yeah, I'll do the same. I'm gonna take the Georgia Bulldogs. They're number 1 in the SEC, 5th in the country. Took 2 out of 3. A historic weekend. Arkansas had never been beaten that badly at home. The 26 actually was the second most runs they'd ever given up in a game. Georgia just they're hitting the ball. They got 113 home runs, which leads the free world right now. It's fantastic performance by the Dogs. Johnson's got them going. They're hitting the hell out of the ball. Their pitching is fantastic. The bullpen, they're rolling right now. The key will be to see if they can keep it going. I still think Texas is a better team. Georgia has a better record and won series, but I still like Texas as a better team. But right now Georgia's my team of the week, and they're looking good. They got Georgia Tech tomorrow night at Truist, where the Atlanta Braves.
Yeah, my winner of the week is not going to be the Vanderbilt Commodores who beat the Wildcats. I'm rolling with the Auburn Tigers, a team that I have liked since the beginning of the season. I want to go back to March 21st through March 31st. In a 10-day period, they lost 6 games and only won 1 game. So 1-6 over that stretch. Lost 2 out of 3, lost 2 games to Texas in that stretch, lost 3 to Alabama, and got run ruled midweek by Georgia Tech. Since then, they won 2 out of 3 against Arkansas, won 2 out of 3 against Kentucky, went down to Gainesville, and took 2 out of 3 against the Gators this weekend. Yeah, they're another one of those 10-8 teams who I think has gotten better since getting punched in the mouth a little bit at the end of March. Really good April. I think they continue it through the remainder of the year, but they've got a pretty gnarly schedule ahead of them. They get Oklahoma at home, then travel to A&M, travel to Mississippi State, and then get Georgia at home to round out the year. That's 4 teams that are all in the top 16, 17 in the country, with, actually might even be a little higher than that, 4 really good teams to round out the year. I think they win 3 of those series to close it out, and Auburn is, man, one of my favorite teams this year. They've been battle injuries have kinda slowed them down a little bit, but they really have that next man up mentality. You lose Rembert early in the year. He's back now, had guys fill in. You lost Bristol Carter multiple weekends this year, and what happens? A guy fills in and hits close to 400 while he's out. So this is a team that really embodies the next man up mentality, and I love that about this Auburn Tiger squad. So that is a wrap for our winners and losers of the week. Kevin, what do you want to move on to now?
Yeah, so just from a recap this weekend, just kind of an overall, again, I would second what you said. I think the series Auburn and Florida was a huge one for them to get on the road. They needed to get to 10-8, and they needed a road series win. Macy McCrane, the freshman outfielder, big series for him. Had 3 home runs this weekend, and he came up big. And in that Sunday game, the way they hit the ball late was huge. And you got to give Alex Petrovic a lot of credit Sunday. He gave up a 3-run homer in the first, and then pitched 6 shutout innings after that to get him through 7 innings. Um, only down 3-2, and Bub Terrell hit a home run to lead off the 8th, and then they blew up from there and won that game. So that would be my first, just like really landmark, one. And then second one, look, you got to give Texas A&M credit. They go to LSU, and Texas A&M's a better team, great lineup, but you got to give them credit. They went into Baton Rouge and they won 3, and pretty decisive. They won with good pitching and a great hitting. Again, Wilson Friday night was awesome. Sorrell was really good through the whole series. Grahovic, just their whole team. Kellner's good in the field. Partita's good in the field. Their bullpen was strong this weekend. And you look up, and that's a team that's 12-5, half game behind Georgia right now in the SEC. Only because that Sunday game with Texas got rained out. But again, you go back, early in the season, they lost 2 out of 3 at home to Georgia, and they went on the road to Oklahoma and lost 2 out of 3 there. I think that was in their first 3 series. So they've really stacked some wins up and some sweeps and series up. They're as good as anybody right now, and they're a team as they keep winning, and I think they will keep winning because I just think that lineup is just strong, and they're pitching. And look, Aiden Sims, their second guy on Saturday. We've talked. There's so many good Saturday starters in this league, but he's right there at the top group of 4 or 5 of those Saturday guys. He can go out and win any Saturday. But this is not a team that you want to face when you get to the NCAA tournament. They're going to be. I'll go out right now. This is not going out on a limb because of the way they're playing. This is not a limb at all. They're going to be a top 8 seed. A&M will. And I do think Texas is the best team with U Suites in the SEC. I think, night in, night out, Texas is the best team. But I'm also going to go out here and say that just besides being a super regional, I think the team that has the best chance in the SEC of winning the College World Series is Texas A&M, simply because of what they can put on the lineup. And again, after watching them this weekend, a little more impressed with their bullpen than I thought I would be. I thought that's how you beat them, is getting their bullpen, but their bullpen was pretty solid. So that would be kind of my key points on a recap. From the week. Obviously, LSU, another disappointing weekend. We can talk about them here at the end, but again, they are just what we've seen it. 59 wild pitches, defense struggles, ERA right at 5. They've got some good players, and there's potential there to be good next year. But LSU's just got to finish this year the best they can. That's just they're a bottom 3 or 4 team in the SEC right now.
I agree. Talent wise, Talent wise, they shouldn't be. There's really no excuse to be this bad. I just think that this year was just a big miss on portal players, and the ones we brought in aren't developing at all. Pitching is meh. The hitting is worse than that. And the defense is worse than that. So three wrongs don't make a right. And I can't see any way sitting at 6-12 that LSU could get back to 500. We'd have to go 9-3 over our next four series. Mac, I, I I'm not positive. I think you might have a slightly better chance at being named the next pope than we do of going 9-3 in these next four series, buddy. You got any thoughts?
Yeah, before I jump into LSU, I want to talk a little bit of conference as a whole. You look at Georgia, A&M, and Texas, top three. You take those three out, then you take LSU, Carolina, Missouri out. You look at this 4 through 13, these 10 teams, and how good are 4 through 13? And I know I'm low on Kentucky at the moment. Tennessee's also 8 and 10. You have 10 teams that are separated by 2 games in the middle of this conference. And potentially, I could see one, two, three, four, five, six of these teams being good enough to host a regional. Now, not all six of these. We're not going to get 9 hosts from the SEC this year, but you've got 6, maybe even 7 of these mid-range teams that are still competing for hosting. This may be the most competitive SEC from 4 through 13 that we've had in a really long time in the SEC. So, love that. And now over to the LSU team. Jay announced tonight that Cooper Moore is done for the year, but is able to retain a medical redshirt year this year. So he comes back next year as a junior again with the draft leverage next season. Man, what a moment for LSU. I mean, this year's bad, but you're going to return Kason Evans, William Schmidt, and Cooper Moore from the rotation, who I know Kason Evans has had an up and down year. William Schmidt has had some really good moments, maybe a little bit of bad luck here lately. Um, but this LSU team is going to return a talented pitching staff that maybe just didn't click this year. But as far as what's left for the remainder of the year, you mentioned the portal guys that we brought in. It's such a tough thing too, because you had guys who are playing at other Power Four schools this year who were freshmen last year who left the team in the middle of a run in regionals, super regionals, even had guys leaving as we were getting to. And that's just tough. I wish that there was a scenario where, you had to stay through the season and be recruited. You can decide after the season, but there's only so much a coach can do when he's preparing for a national championship and guys are leaving his team to go into the portal. You can only recruit so much there. So I don't blame all the freshmen leaving on, hey, Jay said he was going to get better players. I don't think that was necessarily the case. I think you had a lot of guys who did not get the playing time they wanted as freshmen, especially in the infield. You had a phenomenal infield last year, the best fielding infield that we've ever seen at LSU. Jared Jones at first base. I think a lot of people took his fielding ability for granted after having a Trey Morgan before him. Man, I think everybody would love for another year of Jared Jones here with the play we've had at first base all year, which has gotten better the last 2 weeks with a few different guys in. Um, then you look at Daniel Dickinson at second base last year. Wasn't a guy who hit 20 home runs. where he was a guy who fielded well, hit what 330, 320, somewhere around there, got on base. Even a Michael Braswell, who struggled at the plate last year. The year before he hit well. He hit 320 but struggled in the field last year, hit a buck 90 but played immaculate defense. And then you had Stephen Milam at shortstop who I think maybe from a fielding perspective maybe the best shortstop LSU's ever had from just a fielding perspective. Guys like Alex Bregman, who are potential Hall of Fame guys in the MLB one day. Tough to say that he's the best overall shortstop. He makes all the tough plays look routine as well. And with some of the freshmen seeing a guy like Milam, staying another year this year. I think that discouraged them instead of wanting to come compete, play a different position for a year, and then have the opportunity for shortstop in 2027. So I think, you noticed a guy like Jack Ruckert playing a little bit more early on. You noticed us getting the freshmen involved a little more this year, which I think is also a way to entice them to stay. And it helps when you're struggling in those positions that you can put them in, give them some playing time. And freshmen are going to make mistakes. You see it when guys get called up to the bigs. Outside of Connor Griffin's first game, all these guys struggle early on their rookie year in the bigs. They struggle as freshmen in college. So you just got to kind of work through that. I still expect LSU to hit some big targets in the portal this offseason, but I don't think you're going to see a guy like Jack Ruckert or Mason Braun hit the portal. I don't think you see a William Patrick hit the portal. I think the freshmen are maybe a little more bought in this year on staying than last year's championship team, but the team as a whole is not bought into winning games like they were last year. So, I mean,
So
yeah,
let me ask you this, D-Mac, because you mentioned some guys that left last year, some guys that we knew were talented. And again, maybe that bridge is burned, but I guess that's my question. Why not go back and try to get Mikey Ryan back, hitting 328 with 9 home runs in the ACC with North Carolina State? Why not try to go get Ryan Costello? Why not get those guys back? I mean, what's your thoughts there?
yeah. I mean, I'm sure that they're going to be evaluated. I'm drawing a blank on where Mikey Ryan's from originally.
I believe he's from Louisiana. Now, Costello's up around the Northeast. I know that. So he would be a tougher pull. He's playing for Maryland. But I
Yeah.
think, wasn't Ryan from around here?
I'm actually pulling that up. He's a Luling kid. So he's a Louisiana kid.
Exactly.
I don't know how that ended. I don't know if there was a bridge burned by the player. But yeah, I mean, if things ended well, the kid just wanted to have a guaranteed spot. Like, he could come in and be our shortstop next year if Milam chooses to go to pro ball. He would be a guy I would call. I don't dislike Costello at all. He's got a lot of swing and miss, but he hits the ball far. I would maybe want a little bit more seasoned first baseman from maybe a bigger school, but he would be on the radar. I would go after Costello before I go after a, Grand Canyon or High Point kid this time around. That's for sure.
Yeah. So Costello, and this is where he was a couple weeks ago. So I'm curious. He's hitting 270 with 13 homers and 43 RBIs. So, he's going to, and again, in the ACC, good league. So, to your point, he does have some swing and miss. To me in the SEC, that's going to be 260. But again, he could be a 260, 15 home run type guy. Um, Again, it's just two people that I think you should consider. And I guess my thought to that is go get guys playing in good conferences that you can translate. Ole Miss has done a really good job of that over the last 2 or 3 years, taking guys out of the ACC. Becerra this year is another example of that versus going and getting guys like from High Point and Grand Canyon and those places.
But a little bit of that comes with having the funds too, that
It
LSU
does.
has not committed to baseball. You know, you look at a guy like Henry Ford at Tennessee, who we went after. We went after Blanco. We went after Landon Mack,
Landon Matt. Yep.
who now if Vitello takes that job in July instead of September, those guys probably end up at LSU, at least two of the three there. And, you know, your team may look a lot different. And then you look at, you know, Carson Tenney, Texas. Now, I don't know how hard LSU pursued him. That seemed to be locked up before he entered the portal. Like Timo Becerra, the third baseman. I know he talked to LSU at one point. Yeah, I just think with how long winning a championship has its disadvantages in the portal.
Certainly, yeah. I mean, we're locked up for weeks. You know, last year's one locked us up for 2, 3, 4 weeks longer than some of our competitors had to go and recruit these kids. But what I don't even think it's that as much as what you said before, in that LSU just isn't getting the funds to Jay Johnson, and to me that's malpractice. To not provide a two out of your last three College World Series winning coach with the funds to maintain the program. I mean, I don't know where we are as far as spending goes. I've heard from different people we're probably mid to lower half of the SEC, which is embarrassing. Frankly, it's just embarrassing to win 2 out of 3 titles and not have your athletic department boosters, wherever that money may be coming from, locked in and getting the funds needed to maintain the run. I don't, and this is more down your up your alley, DMAC, because you're a little closer there. But what are your thoughts on that? I mean, do you think that there will be some funds from within the budget, or will they come from TAF, or will they come from outside boosters, or what are your thoughts?
Well, they're getting additional funds from the rev share. They're going to move up 2 to 3%,
4 to 5.
which is double what
Yeah,
they had this
I was gonna say that's
season.
huge.
3 to 5%. Yep. Go ahead.
This is a year where you're gonna have more money, and you know, I think it was a combination last year between playing so long and not having the funds. Because by the time you had a Henry Ford type of player, you know, have the ability to bring him on campus, and you're coming in a little bit lower than Tennessee.
And later.
Tennessee's had 1 month of building that relationship with this kid already, as to where I think LSU, if Jay's got a month to build that relationship, he can get away with paying him a little less. Now you can't, you know, a guy who's gonna get $1 million, and I'm not saying that's what he got, but if he's getting 1 million somewhere, you can't come in at 200. But if you can be competitive and have that additional month to build that relationship, if you know LSU's gonna get their guy 10 times out of 10 if it's the right player who wants to win a championship. That's what you're going to have at LSU. This is a down year. I would say the NIL funding was about where you see LSU in the SEC standings right now. It was lower than middle, and I think the administration sees that. We've seen money poured into basketball without results. We've seen money poured into without results in the past. You've got to give baseball its chance to get money poured into it.
But baseball's winning. They're actually win. They're, you would think that you would support a winner. Give him what he wants. And I know that 5% isn't, doesn't sound like a lot, but it really, I mean, it's double what we were getting before. But it is, when you look at it, that baseball has what, about a fifth, maybe something like that. 2/9 of the roster of the football team, right? They don't have they just don't have the output. So you don't need 10% of the budget, but it would be nice to get maybe some former major league guys to maybe step up and help out a little bit, or get something going like that. You've seen it happen at a few other places, so just wherever they can get the funds from, they need to get them to Jay Johnson to keep this
Yep.
going.
I think doubling the rev share, huge step. If Jay can get, an additional 30% of NIL money from the donors that we're giving, that sets this team up. Back you're never going to be number one in baseball at LSU for the SEC from a giving standpoint. But you've got a clear advantage in environment over most of these programs. There's two or three that have a equal to or greater than environment than Alex Box. But I stand by this. Nobody has a better head coach in the SEC than LSU has.
I would agree with that, and
Tradition.
I would also say that nobody has I don't know the exact proper name of it, but the Marucci Training Center over there. That place is unbelievable. I mean, that's like if you like baseball, that's like a little kid going to space camp, going to Huntsville for the NASA camp. I mean, that's how unbelievable that place is, and I don't see how players couldn't be impressed with that place because I've never seen anything like it at another college campus.
The
Yeah, and
tradition, the amount of major league. I believe LSU leads college baseball with 11 major league baseball players on rosters. You have all that behind you. I agree. I think the funding plays a big role, but let me also say this in this. And again, you don't know how all that played out last year with maybe those guys wanted more playing time. But again, I think also how you spend your money is, and I think Jay hinted to this Friday night in his press conference where he said he wants a good bit of the team to be based on development. Again, if you keep a Costello, you keep a Mikey Ryan, certainly their production is better than what you have at those positions. And I'm saying that slide Mikey Ryan to second. Let's say maybe he wanted to play shortstop only, but I'm going to believe that you could have convinced him to play second and then play behind Milam next year. But if you keep those guys and then you have a little more money to spend and you go out and get a top guy versus having to get so many guys to fill positions. And Jay talked about that Friday, using the portal to supplement and using your development to develop your power hitters and your contact and your best players. You might get a Tommy West out of the portal, but I think that's the approach, and you could really tell his frustration. I think more money helps, but I think it's just a combination. I think you got to have money. I think you got to have a clear plan with where you're going to go in development, and then you got to have good evals in the portal. It's not a one size fits all. And again, certainly playing late hurts all that. It put pressure on those guys transferring because they had a window there. Just like the window in football, they need to move the window in baseball to after the season. That way they don't feel the pressure of transferring at the end and the middle of the season too. Well, not middle, but middle of the College World Series.
Last year's problems won't be this year's problems because I can't see us making a run, and we're gonna have twice the money we had last year. So two rights won't make a wrong there. I see better days ahead, but I don't think they're going to be this season.
No, definitely. I get the sense that the program's also, you're not giving up this year by any means.
Oh,
You still want to go out. You want to win every game you play. You want to go 18, well, 12, 15 and 0 in the remaining games of the regular season. But knowing that we may miss postseason this year, that gives you potentially 6 weeks over some of these other SEC teams. And I can tell you, Duty Noble's probably a great place to play a game at. Same with Bomb for Arkansas. But I would choose Baton Rouge every day of the week and twice on Sundays over either of those towns.
When you bring the
I think
totality, like Sweets mentioned, the facilities, the tradition, everything that LSU can do for you, and a good coaching staff, I would agree.
Yeah, like I said, and like you just hit on again, DMAC. If we get 5, 6, if we get a even a 3, 4 week jump on some of these teams, that's going to make a huge difference in the portal, where Jay can get those kids in and he can get them on campus while other teams are still playing. We might be locking people down while they're still playing. And we need to, honestly, but they need to be guys from big boy programs. I agree. We've hit on a few guys from smaller programs that came up in the past, but this year was just a big swing and a miss. I think that Jay learned his lesson. I think that everybody else on the staff learned their lesson. I think moving forward, he will try to develop from within, and then be a little choosier from the portal instead of trying to do, major overhauls from the portal. That, only Signetti can do that. Nobody else can. So,
Because yeah, I mean Jay has hit in the portal far more than he's.
yeah, yeah. It's just, like I said, this year was just, I mean, didn't really hit on anything. I mean, I can't think of one guy in the portal that is really standing out. Can you? For LSU.
Not one this
Maybe
year.
maybe
Moore was good
maybe
until he got hurt.
yeah, maybe Santiago Garcia out of the
He's been
bullpen.
solid.
Yeah. I mean, but that with all the perceived talent that we had and stuff, that should be our standard bearer right there.
'Cause you look at the guys he's hit on in the portal, Paul Skeens excluded. Paul Skeens is just a different player. There's nobody from anywhere in the country with the mentality and focus that he would have. But Tommy White, NC State, Luke Holman, Alabama, Thatcher Hurd, UCLA,
Yeah,
Michael Braswell, South Carolina, Chris Stanfield, a couple years ago when he came in, Auburn. Yeah, so I definitely think you've got to get back to that. I think you see LSU just take maybe 5 or 6 portal players, who are just going to be good players. I don't know if you bring in great players, but you're gonna bring a guy who hit 305 from, the SEC or the ACC or the West Coast of the Big Ten. I think you bring in more of those players than, your Tommy White caliber players, and you just fill holes because you're gonna have guys. I am not happy with the catcher position as most LSU fans. I think Aaron Beatty and Cerna can get it together in an off season of focus.
I
I'm
think
not
Sarna's
really
got better defensively.
yeah. Aaron Beatty's a guy who's battled some injury all year too that I don't think has been able to get fully healthy to catch. Man, you may add a catcher, but I don't think you have to add a catcher. My focus would be infield and outfield or more than catcher, even though we've had, 75 balls get past us this year. I'm not ready to turn the page on either of those guys to where you would bring in a starter at catcher because those two guys I think can rotate well and you want their bats in the lineup every day next year.
Yeah, I think Aaron Beatty's outfield, first base, DH, and give Cerna a day or two off here or there. I'll be honest, I think over the last 2, 3 weeks, Cerna's gotten much better defensively. I'm confident Cerna defensively as the starting catcher next year. And I say that I'm tough on catchers. I played the position. I think it's a huge position for you. I wanted Tenny in the portal. I think Hernandez has really been the only good catcher that Jay's had, so I don't think it's a position that we've done well with. But I say that I do see Cerna as that guy now. He had some good stops yesterday, and the wild pitch. I mean, there was nobody going to catch the wild pitch that Cowan threw in the third. That ball was so far outside. But he's been much better with his hands and feet, getting out, blocking balls. I'm good with Cerna.
And
I
you've got
really am.
another guy who can come back for a year and Eddie Yaman who in his limited catching, especially that Tennessee game, caught really
Been good
well.
defensively. And he was
He's
good.
a guy who can play, catcher first DH next year. I don't think we
He was
have to focus on just having left-handed bats in the lineup next year.
I agree, and Yalman's been good defensively when he's played this year. I honestly think he's been underutilized this year. You look at the infield potential next year, I think we can be good in the infield. We need to transfer to, especially if Milam goes, and he probably will, because if you don't go after your junior, you just have no leverage. But so you probably need a shortstop. But I like from catcher to first. Ron, I think is fine. I even think Pearson has showed some signs. Now you might want a little better, but he showed some signs of hitting the ball. I think we can be solid there with pitching. You're definitely going to need outfielders, though. You got to hit there.
It just everywhere and infielders too. I mean, we can't field the ball. We outside of Monster, we can't catch the ball. We just I don't know if these guys, I can't imagine that they've always been this poor. It's just, I'm not sure if it's a lack of focus or where it's at, but there are a lot of changes that need to happen at the box.
Yeah, I would lean it's more of a mental thing with this team. Now there are maybe one or two guys who have played a lot that probably aren't SEC baseball players, but
Dardar and
I
York.
see I'm even not as low on Dardar. He's been his
He's had a lot of
fielding has
errors.
yeah, so his fielding hasn't been as good, but in like a DH style role,
I agree.
I would like more. Even at first base, I would like him a little bit more. I don't think he has the instincts to play second, but he played mostly first at K-State last year, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, and even some third. I agree. Second base, he doesn't have the footwork to play second base as a middle infielder. I think that definitely was put him in a bad spot.
First baseman, when they switch positions, it's usually not going to second, but not a position switch you see often.
Well, guys, before we wrap up, one last question. SEC Player of the Year, who would you guys have? We'll do a fielder and a pitcher for SEC Player of the Year.
Well,
Kevin,
first,
I'm gonna go to you first with your
Let's go fielder
fielder.
first. Fielder's got to be after this weekend. There were 2 or 3 people I was considering. Sorrell's had a great year. How do you give it to anybody besides Daniel Jackson after this weekend and what he's done? The amount of home runs he's hitting 380, and I mean, he's just tore this league up. To me, it's hands down Daniel Jackson, the catcher DH from Georgia for Player of the Year. Who's next?
that was my guy. Thanks, Kev. Go ahead, D Mac.
You
I
can
got to pick.
take it.
No,
So
no,
so
man, no, no.
I
You know what? He's that good. I mean, he truly.
Yeah. Yes.
so Daniel Jackson would be my guy too, but a guy that I like a lot this year outside of Daniel Jackson is Aiden Robbins has been phenomenal in the outfield. He and maybe Trey Phelps, maybe Brody Johnston would be the only three, but I think Daniel Jackson is just so far ahead of them as well. That it's tough for me to, even Caden Sorrell, who has been really good, I've got him probably around number 6. Um, and then, Brady Neal is a guy who's probably top 10 for me. But yeah, Daniel Jackson would be my vote for player of the year right now.
And you mentioned 4 or 5 guys with Phelps, Johnstone, Sorrell. They are probably gonna be better pros than Jackson, but again, you just can't get past what he's done number-wise.
Yeah. Throw Tristan Bissett in there from Ole Miss.
He's had a good
Having a
year.
solid year. Been player of the week a couple times. You know, but, Jackson's really been that good this year. There's a ton of talents in the SEC, and there are a lot of these guys, like you said, Kev, that are better college players than some of these other guys will be better pro players than they are college players. So it'll be interesting to see how that turns out down the road as well. I mean, Hoover is only what 3.5 weeks away, something like that.
4 series. Got 4 series left, 4 weekend
So
series left.
D-Mac, who do you have for your pitcher of the year?
The easy name is Aiden King for me, but since I don't like this Florida Gators team at all, I still love Jake Marciano from Auburn. His win-loss total isn't great at 3-2. So, an Aiden King or a Thomas Valancius would be my top two. But there are so many good pitchers in this league. You can look basically from 1 through probably 12 from guys win loss ERA, and there could be multiple picks. But I'd go King at Florida or Valencius at Mississippi State right now.
Yeah, I'm gonna go for if I'm picking one pitcher, me Tomas Valancius with his .91 ERA and his right at 36% K rate. That's, not the top K rate, but I gotta go with him for State. I do like Marciano, I think he's very underrated. And then I'm gonna throw another name in there, Sweets, we talked about him last week, and he was great Friday night this past weekend. I think Dylan Volantes has to be in the conversation. I think Valencius is the best.
That's who I was going with, Volantes.
Yeah,
You know, just
he's gotta be
the
up there too.
best Sunday starter in America.
And they finally moved him to Friday, and he got a win.
But was that just for the series though? Because when they had that rain out, didn't they want to keep the other two on their scheduled, or keep the one on his scheduled day? So they switched him around. Are they going to put him back, or
I
has
think
his
they're
tech?
likely to keep him there now. Yeah, I don't think you move him back from a Sunday to a Friday and juggle everybody's rest. And again, I think he's their best. Setting it, you're at a point now you're gonna set your season up for the regionals and that, and they're gonna use him as their first starter in that, I would think. So, I mean, they might, who knows, but I can't he's been so good, I can't imagine him using any he's the best.
They have three aces. I mean, Texas
They do.
truly has. That's why I think they're better than Georgia. I think if I think when the chips are down, if they were playing Georgia in a 3-game series, I would take Texas just because I think their starting pitching is better than Georgia's hitting. And I think those are the two strong points. So I love Texas pitching, but I hope they
Yeah,
lose.
it's really good. And
Yeah.
don't forget Cozart out of the bullpen. If you're going freshman of the year pitcher, Cozart's the guy. He's been nails out of the bullpen for Texas
Yeah.
in a leverage
Yeah, let
situation.
let's talk freshman of the year too. Yeah, you guys like Cozart.
He's been good.
He would be my pick for freshman pitcher of the year right
Pitched great
now.
yesterday.
Yeah. And then if you talk freshman hitters of the year, man, I lean Nico Partita at A&M, but I also really like Will Craddock at South Carolina.
You've been on Craddock since day one, so I
I
thought
know
that's who you're going to take. I
he
I like Pack from Texas.
yeah, I mean
Pat's been good.
you've got 5 to 7 really good freshman fielders. But yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, Sweets. I did call Will Craddock to be a breakout player. And the first two series of the year, he did not even touch the field. Granted, his batting average has gone down, or did go down a little bit at the beginning of SEC play. Last couple weeks, though, he's been hitting the ball much better in SEC play, and he really gets to feast midweek. It seems like every midweek game they play, he hits a home run.
Well, I thought you said he's going to get to. I was going to say, are they playing us midweek this week? What's going on?
No, he
So,
he may he may hit some home runs here in Alex box in a few weeks.
D-Mac, you have definitely been on the Craddock crack. There's no doubt
Yeah,
about it. So
yes, you have.
I would
So
I would
I
go
want to make sure
Partita.
you got some props for that. Want to make sure you got some props for that. I like I'm hoping against hope that LSU can catch fire and maybe get to 13 wins to give the committee something to think about. I don't know if there's a switch that can be flipped because I just don't know this team is talented enough to do that. Do you think there's any chance LSU can get to 13 wins in the SEC?
I still think they're talented enough. I don't know if they're focused enough as a team. I don't know if they have the mentality to do it.
So no.
Yeah.
Kev?
I'm rolling with no postseason for LSU this year.
Yeah, I gotta go with no. I just think so I think some of these guys, I do think there's talent in some of the portal guys that we've got. I think though it was a situation where LSU recruited them, they're getting money, and they arrived. And their work ethic wasn't the same. Their mentality about winning's not been the same. You know, DMAC, you mentioned Skeens and how when he came and he blended with Cruz, and the same thing with Tommy White and those guys. I mean, this team did not have that. Whether you say that's internal leadership or whether it was just the guys in the portal, what they brought, and they didn't have the mentality. You know, again, Jay mentioned that from a hitting standpoint the other night and their approach to hitting, and that's why he wanted to develop it. I just don't think you turn the switch. If you've got some guys that have maybe not been where they needed to be from a mentality standpoint, if it's 65, 70% of the season, I just don't think you can flip a switch and do that. So I find it really hard. You know, it's their worst record this late in the season since 2007. It's been our worst out of conference record since 2007. I think at some point you just got to see it for what it is. We kind of hit it at that last week. Just think that's what it is. I mean, I hope we make, but I just don't see how. You would have to you would have to sweep South Carolina. You would have to beat Florida 2 out of 3. And who else they got in the box? I was thinking of it this morning.
Florida.
Yeah, Florida State on the road. You'd have to win 2 out of 3 against State too, or Georgia. S Sweets, we might go over there for some of the Georgia games. I don't know I don't know if we can win 1 game at Georgia with the way Georgia hits the ball.
I God,
I wanna
I
go, so
can't
I want us to win. I don't wanna go watch us
can't see
lose.
us get I can't see us getting swept again, but I thought that last week after we got swept the week before. I mean, we may get swept we may lose every game for the rest of the season. I don't know. It wouldn't be the biggest surprise, I guess.
Can this pitching staff hold Georgia's lineup to 3 or 4 runs? I don't see it.
I mean, you got to score more than 4 runs to beat Georgia. We'd have to have a decent pitching performance and put up 7 or 8 one night. I mean, it's not out of the question, but it just hasn't happened a lot for us this year.
I wouldn't bet your money it's gonna happen.
Thank
Well,
you.
before we wrap up, happy birthday to Coach Jay Johnson. Today is his birthday. Hopefully his team will go get him some wins for his birthday this week. Got UNO tomorrow, then travel to Duty Noble for the weekend. So, 3-1 would be a great week this week, if the Tigers could get it done. We're moving on from baseball until at least Thursday this week. We will be live tomorrow night talking spring football in the SEC, breaking down a few teams specifically starting tomorrow and over the next few weeks. So we will be coming live to you guys at 7 p.m. Eastern Time, 6 p.m. Central Time. So tune in, ask us some questions tomorrow. And man, I am ready to talk some football now. So that is going to be a wrap from Southern Sports Gumbo. We will see you tomorrow night.